So why should you play Guild Wars 1 in 2021? The game came out in I think 2005, like the first game, Guild Wars Prophecies. But why should you play this game? Honestly, if you like strategy games, you'll love this game. If you like games where dudes have skills and builds and you customize what each guy on your team does and you want them to do different things and you want to experiment with assassin builds, warrior builds, elemental mages, mental mages that interrupt dudes. I highly recommend playing this game. If you like strategy games, this is for you. If you like Fire Emblem, this is a fun game. There are a lot of builds you can use that people have already made, but it's definitely more fun to essentially have no idea what you're doing and just fuck around and experiment and test things and fail and try again. At least for me personally, I mean, you can just play the game where you just look up builds, and look up optimal team comps, but for me personally, it's all about making builds. That's why I keep coming back to this game, because there's so many skills. There's 10 professions that all do different things, and it's just really enjoyable to come up with different things, solve different problems. That's why personally I play it. There's a lot of the community is still alive. There's a lot of content. There's essentially 4 campaigns. There's end game content, elite missions. There's just a whole bunch of different things you can do. There's honestly, I play this game for 4,000 hours and I'm still playing it. That's how much shit there is to do. There's PvP isn't really alive anymore. It's for the most part. There's still some people that do PvP. That used to be a huge thing. Not as much anymore. It's mostly all about PvE these days, or speed clears where people run super optimized builds to clear difficult content quickly. Speed clearing is hard too. People can get quite good at it. So there's skill ceiling in that. There's skill ceiling in team comps. There's a lot in this game. There's a lot for players who like strategy, players who just want to be social. If you want to pick it up with your friends, there's a ton of content. It's just a really fun game. Personally, I really enjoy making builds, so that's why I keep coming back to it, just to try out different builds, try out different ideas. Obviously, if the devs update the game, they just added some new skills, but if they keep adding new things and rebalancing existing things, I could really see the game coming back in a big way. What I think they should do is maybe make one of the games free. Obviously, you're gonna have to deal with bots, but even with old school RuneScape and members, they have to deal with bots. So even when you charge, bots are always an issue for every MMO, gold farmers and all that crap. But I think if they made one of the games free and maybe updated it a bit, we could get a pretty big spike in players. I think that'd be really cool. Right now I'm doing the final quest for Winds of Change on my 7-man. This is the normal mode quest, so it shouldn't be too hard. I'm hoping. I might wipe. I haven't tested this team comp on here yet, but we should be okay here. But yeah, this is a homebrew build I made with Destruction. You summon Destruction, nuke it for damage, obviously. I just got interrupted there. Sometimes it just gets destroyed, but that's fine. I'm out of range, I think, of spirits. There we go. You can get energy off of using, the skill. It siphons energy from spirits, which is kind of cool. So yeah, it's a really fun game. I definitely recommend playing it. I've been playing it for 4,000 hours, and I don't only play this game. I play heavily modded Skyrim, heavily modded Fallout. I played TF2 for 2,000 hours. I've played Tribes Ascend for 1,000 hours. I've played a lot of games. I grew up playing COD, COD 1 on the PC. And COD 2, the World War II CODs. They're very old. And they're really fun too. I had a blast playing COD 1 and 2. But yeah, so I'm not just some dude who's just obsessed with Guild Wars. I play a bunch of different things. I got into Paladins for a while. I was playing that. I played that for 500 hours. I never really got into Overwatch just because I always had TF2, so I never really had the interest for Overwatch, but it looks like a good game. Overwatch is legit, totally. I just never personally got into it for really no reason. But yeah, so I played a bunch of things, so I'm not just some dude who's just obsessed with Guild Wars 1 telling you to try this game out. Honestly, it's really fun. Especially for all the people who follow me for bioshock stuff. Like all these things, like if you like plasmids and shit, like you see all these effects going off, all these interactions. Like this game is a lot like Bioshock. It's like Bioshock as a strategy game essentially. There's 3 campaigns that are like main games, and then there's like a smaller campaign called Eye of the North. It's like an add-on, but it has like all these dungeons and shit. And each dungeon is a challenge. There's all these different like challenge things you can do, like speed clears or running dungeons or beating elite missions. So there's casual content, there's hardcore content. Each campaign is like 20 hours. Each campaign has like at least like 10 to like 20 missions, and each mission is like a different thing where there's objectives, and it's a really well made game, honestly. There's a lot of shit here. There's a lot of fucking content. That's why I've played this game for 4,000 fucking hours. Like, it's really good. This is my most played game ever that I've played, is this game. So I can't recommend it enough. There's a lot of different builds you can run. Like in this build, I create a spirit that as it's alive, it cooks basically. It deals more damage when I blow it up, and then I blow it up. That's what this build does. And then I can also combo with other things to deal even more damage if I set it up correctly. But in this case, I'm just burning through, and you can see these like damage numbers popping up. So I'm just kind of like burning through like my destructions. I'm creating a destruction, I'm blowing it up. My elite skill, you can only have one elite skill if you've never seen Guild Wars. You basically make your build around an elite skill, and when you make a team comp, you can have up to like 8 players in some areas. In elite missions, you can have up to 12. But you make a build around this golden skill that has like the best effects, basically, or it's like one of the strongest skills. So in this case, this skill recharges destruction, which normally can only be used every 20 seconds. And it lets me just keep creating destructions and blowing them up for like fat damage. And this is also a unique build that I just made up. Like, this isn't even a meta build that people run. So you can just make shit up and test it out, and if it works, you have a build on your hands. Like, and if I keep pushing on Reddit for them to balance skills, like update skills that are bad and balance the game a bit. If they balance this shit and they make more skills viable, we could very well have way more experimentation for builds, and like that could really open up the metagame to a point where you can go fucking nuts and make like crazy ass team comps. And that's what I'm pushing for, is for them to like rebalance like skills that are like useless, maybe take some of the best skills, nerf them slightly, not in a huge way. You know, you want to keep the speed clears happy. That's a big part of the community. And honestly, like I don't like speed clearing personally, but I think it's a good thing that it's in the game. I don't think they should fuck with that too much. Like leave alone most of the speed clear meta. If they're gonna nerf any of it, maybe do slight nerfs. But I would just focus on buffs for now. Just buff things that suck so that they're viable, so you have more options. I think that could be really fun. But even in spite of that, like in most cases, like in normal mode, you can run whatever you want. You can make any team comp. Like you can see here, I have a necromancer with a bunch of like minions. So let me pull them out of the crowd. There they are. So this is a necromancer that summons minions that attack things and distract enemies. Then it has earth magic to knock dudes down. And then it can reduce their armor and also make them miss by hexing them with water magic. So this is a necromancer earth mage with some water magic. So this is exactly the type of shit that makes this game interesting, because you can run crazy stuff. Like even in my build, I'm running assassin skills. Shadow arts, which makes me able to tank, so I can take half damage, run in, summon destruction, deal damage around me, get some energy back, then blow the destruction up. And then the main combo is if I also cast Spirit Rift, which creates a ball that rises and then blows up. So if you like Bioshock and you like strategy games, this game is like $40 for the trilogy. There's 4 campaigns. I played the game for 4,000 hours, and it's still fun to me. So I highly recommend. You can see here there's a bunch of players doing this shit. Like, the game's still alive. Like, there's still players and outposts, like, forming groups for, like, daily quests and stuff. So, like, there's still room for, fucking around and experimenting. It's like, even though there's an established meta game, you can still run off meta and, like, make up your own builds and just still have fun with the game and, learn things, experiment with builds. And if I have my way, I'm gonna see if the devs can buff a lot of the useless skills that no one runs, so that way we can get like more build diversity, so you can fuck around. The whole point is making builds, right? Like, you have all these skills, let's make all of them at least viable. So So yeah, definitely check this game out. It's only $40 for, you know, possibly thousands of hours of gameplay. And it's not even like repetitive either. Like there's so many ritualist builds you can run. You can be a healer. You can use this soul twisting skill to mitigate damage your party takes. You can use a soul twisting skill to deal damage. You can be a spirit spammer that just drops a bunch of spirits that just attack dudes. So you kind of feel like you're playing like a tower defense game. You can do burst builds like this. There's like the skill Destructive was Glaive, which lets you just like hold this dude's ashes and then you drop them for fat damage, and you can keep recast it every 5 seconds and just keep nuking the shit out of the area. And you can make your secondary Mesmer, and you can run the skill Arcane Echo that lets you duplicate a skill, so you can have 2 Destructive was Glaives. Like there's so much complexity and there's so many cool things you can do with this game. Like there's the profession system lets you have a primary, which is what you can specialize in mostly, and then a secondary for utility skills. And like in the case of my Mesmer right here, its primary thing is casting spells faster, and then also it has domination magic to interrupt dudes and control them. And in this case I gave it earth magic to knock dudes down using earth spells, so it has like a huge amount of control. Right now I'm on an account that only has one of the games. This is an intentional limitation, so instead of there being an established metagame for my factions only playthrough, which is just the game Guild Wars Factions, I have to make up a new metagame. So I'm doing some of the hardest content in the game with a huge limitation on like just the amount of skills I have available. So it's like forcing me to be creative and come up with new build ideas. But honestly, I'd love to see the main game have a lot of the skills like buffed so that they can be used and you can experiment to make new builds. But you know, we'll see if the devs react to any of these things. Honestly, they might as well make one of the campaigns free to get some new players interested, and maybe like rework and polish some of the, like maybe make factions free or prophecies free, but we'll see how that goes. But the whole game is $40. You know, I spent thousands of hours playing this game. Someone's trying to get me to join their group, but I'm doing a specific 7-man thing right now, so. Alright, but that's why I think you should play Guild Wars 1. In 2021, it's still a fun strategy game. If you like Fire Emblem, if you like bioshock, if you like strategy games in general, you can like, here, let me go out into this outpost really quick. Actually, let me find a place I can just quickly run outside. So cool thing you can do, you see how I have all these characters. I can actually tell them where to go and what to do. So let's say I'm doing a mission or some quest or whatever where, you know, there's like some enemies coming in. You can also draw on the map and shit, which is cool. So let's say here's my healer, or one of my healers. I'm going to put my healer back so I can flag them back. So this is where it becomes like a strategy game. I can set my other like utility healers kind of like this. So in order to get to this character who has these spirits that protect the entire team, the enemy has to go through these 2 first, and then what I usually like to do is flag my other guys like this. So that way there's like kind of like a formation, and you can do different formations too, like and there's a reason to use different formations. Sometimes, like let's say if you want enemies to ball up around like a corner, like let's say enemies are coming at you, they're like all spread out like this, you want them to all come at you in a straight line, you can use terrain so that they have to repath to get to you, and then they can get them stuck on here and then burst them down. So you could have a formation that's like kind of tight, like this, assuming that I'm going to be the one getting attacked. So all the enemies are just going to focus on me. I could put my healers like just within casting range, so they're kind of safe, but still able to heal me. And then I could pull all the enemies, and then as the enemies are funneling in, my offense just starts like wailing on them, like all these casters. And it's usually not a good idea to have your dudes close because of AoE spells, like hit them all, but this could be viable if I tank correctly. These are easy enemies, this is normal mode, but alright, let's see how this works. Okay, so he's attacking this Canthan peasant right now. I'm gonna try to body block, just kind of get them to focus on me if possible. They seem to be running away. So AI does have like a radius, like how far it can travel, so that's something else to keep in mind. These dudes are really easy to kill in normal mode, but for hard mode, these like angle formations can work pretty well. But yeah, there's different formations, there's different team comps. You can have like dudes that summon minions, you can have dudes that summon spirits. There's like offensive spirits, defensive spirits, there's enchantments, there's hexes, there's conditions, there's stances. There's like a lot of complexity here. So if you really like Bioshock and you really like strategy games, or if you really like Fire Emblem, this is a really fun game. If you want to figure it out yourself, I'd recommend not even asking people for help and just diving into the game. Start with Nightfall because you can get heroes that you can customize their builds, like you can see here. So if I hit K, it'll open up. You can see each hero. This is me, the player, and then these are all my other characters. So you can see their builds here. So I'll just show that really quick. Alright, so here is a build, right? So in this case, this dude can summon minions, which require corpses. If I die, any of my dudes die, or if enemies die, they will leave an exploitable corpse. Corpses can be exploited once. If an enemy is resurrected and dies again, they can also have their corpse exploited again, but only once per death. This, you can create minions off of exploitable corpses, then you can heal them with Blood of the Master. Let's say I want to get rid of this elite skill, Unsteady Ground, for a super minion that's extremely tanky. So I can just switch out the elite skill for a flesh golem. Now I can create a really high level golem that hits really hard on a single target, and when it dies it leaves an exploitable corpse, which most minions do not. So the big upside to flesh golem is it is a huge dude that hits hard, is really tanky, and when he dies you can reanimate him, assuming that an enemy doesn't exploit the corpse, which in most cases doesn't happen, so you get to get your flesh golem back. But there's tons of elite skills. There's tons of different like reasons to run different skills, and this is just kind of like how you can make builds. So like let's say I want my Ellie to also be a healer or something to like help with healing. Let's throw away some utility skills it has. Maybe reduce the earth magic, the curses, and the energy storage, and give it like secondary of monk and increase protection prayers, and then give it spirit bond and maybe protective spirit. So now, I mean, this would consume a lot of energy, but now my Ellie can deal damage with all these fire spells, and it can now also throw an enchantment on a dude that whenever they take over 50 damage, they get healed for 62 health 10 times. And it can do this in 1/4 of a second. So, and then the protective spirit prevents a dude on your team from losing 10% of their max health when they're enchanted with this. So, like, this is just an example of giving an Ellie some utility, or any character some utility on their existing skill bar. And then you can also load and save builds, so you can test builds, see if they work, and then if they work, you can just load them back, which is nice. So you can experiment, see what works. So this is a game for people who want to make builds, like strategy games, like RPGs. This is like probably one of the best RPGs I've played in general. And I don't say that lightly. Like I've played, like Oblivion, Skyrim, what else? Like the Tales games. And I do really like the Tales games especially, but I've played some pretty good RPGs, so I don't say this lightly. But like I still come back to this game after all these years. So if anything, the 4,000 hours and the fact that I still think about this game is like a testament to how well designed it is. And I've also shipped 5 indie games. None of them are like huge or amazing, but they're like decent. They're not like, hit games, but they're like average quality, so they're not like dog shit. So that's kind of my point. But so yeah, definitely pick up Guild Wars. You can get it with your friends. It's fun to go through the campaigns when you have no idea what you're doing. I remember that like distinctly, and like I just kept playing, like even though I was like failing missions constantly and I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, this is really fun. And like making builds was fun, experimenting was fun, but yeah, definitely check it out.